Mr. Dark Whispers.
Imagine this. You're at rock bottom. Your life is a mess. Then, a stranger walks into your apartment, offers you $1 million to just stay home for a year. No catch. Sounds like a dream, right? An easy way out? But what if that dream turned into a living nightmare? What if that easy money cost you everything? Your family, your friends, your sanity, even your very identity. This is the story of how I signed away 16 years of my life for a fortune, only to find myself the ultimate loser in a game I didn't even know I was playing. If you've ever felt trapped by your own choices or wondered if the cost of success could truly be everything you hold dear, then hit that like button, subscribe, and prepare yourself for a descent into a quiet, chilling horror that might just hit closer to home than you think. It all started about 16 years ago when Rachel left me. Not that I blame her. I was an absolute mess back then, a walking, breathing disaster of a human being. Hell, I'm still a mess now, just a different kind of mess. It's a much, much richer mess, and somehow that makes it even worse. We'd been together for 4 years. 4 years where I truly believed we were building something real, something that would last. I had the ring hidden away, ready to pop the question, but apparently, my opinions on taking things slow and her opinions on building a future together were two very different things. My casual pace was her crushing stagnation. My comfort, her suffocating cage. After she moved out, a void opened up in my life, and I tumbled headfirst into it. I pretty much became a hermit. My work, freelance development, building AI algorithms for tech companies, already kept me tethered to my home, so it was easy to just stop leaving. The outside world became a distant hum, a blurry backdrop to my self-imposed exile. Groceries ordered online. Every meal, every snack, every forgotten necessity delivered to my door. My days blurred into a monotonous cycle of coding, my nights into a haze of cheap beer and endless Netflix scrolling. The only place I'd venture was Murphy's, this little dive bar around the corner. Even then, it was just to sit alone, nurse a couple of Budweisers, and pretend I was being social. The worn wooden bar, the flickering neon sign, the scent of stale beer, it was my sanctuary. Jimmy, the bartender, a grizzled old-timer with eyes that had seen too much, knew my order and, more importantly, knew not to bother me with small talk. It was perfect, a silent observer in my own self-destruction. My mom would call every few days, her voice laced with thinly veiled concern. "When can I come visit, honey? When are you coming home for dinner?" My friends would text invitations to hang out, grab drinks, go to concerts. I ignored most of it. It was easier to just stay in my self-made bubble, safe in my misery, and feel sorry for myself. Rachel had moved on. I could see it in the curated perfection of her Instagram posts. Her new life, new boyfriend, new everything. Meanwhile, I was wearing the same sweatpants for 3 days straight and eating cereal for dinner, a monument to my own pathetic existence. That's when he showed up. It was a Tuesday in February, around 2 p.m. I remember the exact time because I was elbow deep in debugging some neural network code, cursing at lines of logic when the doorbell rang. I almost didn't answer it. I wasn't expecting any deliveries, and I definitely wasn't in the mood for Jehovah's Witnesses or solar panel salesmen. My world was already too complicated, but something tugged at me, subtle, almost imperceptible curiosity. I got up, my muscles stiff from hours, hunched over the keyboard and shuffled to the peephole. He was tall, maybe in his 50s, wearing an expensive-looking gray suit that probably cost more than my entire month's rent. His silver hair was perfectly groomed, swept back from a high forehead, gleaming under the weak winter sun. He had the kind of confident, almost benevolent smile that made you trust him immediately. Even when every instinct screamed otherwise, it looked like he belonged in a mahogany-paneled boardroom, not standing outside my shitty apartment building, which reeked faintly of stale cigarettes and desperation. I opened the door, probably looking exactly like I'd been living in a cave for months, which wasn't far from the truth. My eyes, accustomed to the dim glow of screens, squinted against the sliver of daylight. "Mr. Walker," his voice was smooth, professional, a calm ripple in my otherwise stagnant existence. "Yeah, that's me. Can I help you?" My voice was rough from disuse, a gravelly whisper. "I certainly hope so. My name is Mr. Blackwood," and I have a proposition that might interest you." He glanced past me, his eyes sweeping over the empty beer bottles scattered like fallen soldiers. The clothes draped over furniture like defeated flags, the general disaster that was my life. He didn't flinch, not even a flicker of judgment. "May I come in?" Everything in my brain was screaming that this was wrong. It's a stranger, a man too perfect for my imperfect world, asking to enter my sanctuary of self-pity. But there was something about his presence, an almost hypnotic authority, that made me step aside and let him in. He moved with a quiet grace, then sat down on my stained couch, as if he owned the place.
Out!
Completely unfazed by the mess, the lingering scent of old pizza and loneliness. "Mr. Walker, I'll get straight to the point. I represent certain interested parties who are conducting a social experiment. We're looking for individuals who might be willing to participate in an extended isolation study." Isolation study? The words tasted foreign on my tongue. Quite simple, really. You would agree to remain inside your residence for exactly 1 year. No leaving, not even to step outside for fresh air, no exceptions whatsoever. In exchange, you would receive $1 million upon successful completion. I stared at him for a long moment, waiting for the punchline, the hidden camera, the fine print that would reveal it all as a cruel joke. But his gaze was steady, his smile unwavering. "You're serious, ... Completely. You can continue working, use the internet, order anything you need for delivery. The only requirement is that you cannot physically leave this apartment for 365 consecutive days. $1 million. The number hung in the air, shimmering with possibility. I made decent money coding, enough to scrape by, but $1 million would change everything. I could pay off my student loans, those suffocating chains around my neck, my credit cards, maybe even buy a house. And honestly, the way I'd been living for the past few months, I was basically already doing it for free. This was just getting paid for my misery. "What's the catch?" I asked, my voice betraying the desperate hope now bubbling beneath my carefully constructed apathy. Mr. Blackwood's smile widened, a practiced, almost predatory gleam in his eyes. "No catch. Simply a year of your life in exchange for financial freedom. Will provide you with a direct deposit of $50,000 up front to cover any expenses, and the remaining $950,000 upon completion." He pulled out a contract from his sleek briefcase. It was surprisingly short, just 2 pages of sterile legal language that basically said I couldn't leave my apartment for a year, and if I did, I'd forfeit the money and have to pay back the advance. I should have asked more questions. I should have wondered who these interested parties were, what their true motives were, or why they'd pay someone $1 million to stay home. But I was depressed, desperately broke in a spiritual sense, and honestly, the idea of having a legitimate external excuse to avoid the world for a while sounded like a perfect escape. A golden cage. I signed the contract. The pen felt heavy in my hand, a significant weight for such a simple act. Little did I know, I wasn't just signing for a year of isolation. I was signing away my entire future. To be honest, the first few months were actually amazing. That initial $50,000 hit my account before I had even woken up the next day. Beautiful, anonymous direct deposit. Suddenly, my ramen noodle existence transformed. I could afford good food, the kind of artisanal coffee I'd only dreamed of, better beer, all the video games and streaming services I wanted. I indulged every craving, every fleeting desire. I threw myself into work with a new, almost frantic enthusiasm, taking on bigger, more complex projects, making more money than I'd ever made before. The screen, once a window to my self-pity, became a canvas for my newfound, if limited, ambition. My friends, when I cautiously told them about the deal, thought I was crazy. "You signed what now?" But most of them were also kind of jealous. "Dude, you're getting paid $1 million to do what you were already doing," my buddy Marcus exclaimed during one of our weekly video calls, his face filling the screen. "That's the easiest money ever." They laughed. I laughed. We all laughed. Even my mom, bless her worried heart, was supportive, though her voice carried an undertone of concern. "Just promise me you'll call if you need anything, honey. And maybe try to eat some vegetables once in a while." She worried, but she didn't question the legitimacy of the deal. The money, after all, was real. Around month 4, I started talking to myself. It didn't feel weird at first, just little comments while I was coding, narrating my thought process, or offering myself cooking instructions. All right, let's see if this algorithm actually works this time. Or, need to chop these onions finer, David. No one likes chunky onions. Normal stuff. Everyone talks to themselves sometimes, right? It's a way to fill the silence, to have a constant companion in an otherwise empty apartment. The hardest part was the loneliness that would hit at random brutal moments. I'd be having a great day, crushing some complex coding project, feeling productive and almost happy. Then I'd scroll through social media, seeing a photo of my friends laughing, hanging out without me, living the lives I'd deliberately opted out of. It would feel like a physical punch to the gut, a sharp, suffocating reminder of what I'd sacrificed. But I had video calls, texting, social media. I wasn't completely cut off from the world, just disconnected. A spectator in my own life. When the year was up, Mr. Blackwood returned, as if summoned by an invisible clock. He stood at my door, precisely at the agreed-upon minute, impeccably dressed, carrying that same sleek briefcase. He handed me a check for $950,000 with that same professional, unreadable smile. Congratulations, Mr. Walker. I trust the experience wasn't too difficult. His eyes, dark and piercing, seemed to probe not just my words, but the very depths of my being. Actually, I said, a slight tremor in my voice. It was easier than I expected, and in many ways, it truly had been. The routine, the financial security, the enforced solitude, it had become my new normal. Excellent, he purred, a subtle satisfaction in his tone. In that case, I have another proposition for you. My heart, which had been slowing with the thought of rejoining the chaos of the outside world, suddenly started racing. I'd been dreading this moment ending, this comfortable, predictable existence. The thought of going back, of figuring out what to do with my life, what to do with the money, felt overwhelming. 5 more years, Mr. Walker? Same rules, same apartment? In exchange, $10 million? $10 million. The words echoed in my head, loud and resonant. Fuck. That was retirely never work again money. That was by -house-in-cash, travel the world money. More money than I could ever dream of. Honestly, I'd gotten pretty comfortable with my setup. 5 years would fly by, a blip. I signed the second contract, this time without hesitation. My hand barely trembled. The ink felt like a promise to myself, a promise of ultimate freedom. The first year of the 5-year deal went smoothly. I was still making great money with my coding work, easily surpassing any previous income. I'd settled deeper into my routine, a comfortable rhythm of work, food, and digital escapism. And shockingly, I was actually happier than I'd been since Rachel left. I'd even lost some weight, started working out in my apartment, tried meditation apps. My friends, still calling occasionally, joked that isolation was the best thing that ever happened to me. They didn't know the half of it. But then things started going wrong, insidiously, subtly, like hairline fractures forming in a perfectly constructed wall. It was during year 2 that Rachel called. Her name flashed on my phone screen, a ghost from a past life. I saw it, felt a sharp pang of recognition, and almost didn't answer. But a brutal, almost desperate curiosity got the better of me. Hey, David. Her voice, it was exactly the same. It hit me like a freight train, a tidal wave of memories and regret. Rachel, hi. I wasn't expecting to hear from you. My voice was a little breathy, raw with a decade of unspoken longing. I know this is random, she began, her voice softer than I remembered, but I've been thinking about you lately, about us. I was wondering if maybe we could get lunch sometime, just to talk, you know. We both made some mistakes. My heart was pounding so hard I thought it might explode, a furious drumbeat against my ribs. This was it. This was what I'd been hoping for, dreaming about for years. The impossible made real. She wanted to try again. I had a chance to rewind, to fix everything. But I can't, I stammered, the words catching in my throat, tasting like ash. You can't, are you? Seeing someone? A flicker of hope in her voice, instantly extinguished by my next words. No, it's not that. I literally can't leave my apartment right now. It's complicated. The last two words felt like a desperate plea for understanding, even as I knew how absurd they sounded. There was a long, deafening silence. Silence that stretched thick and heavy between us. David, what the hell are you talking about? Are you under house arrest or something? Her voice was colder now, a rising tide of suspicion. I tried to explain. About the deal, the money, how I only had 3 more years left. But even as I heard the words tumble from my mouth, I could hear how insane it sounded. A deranged confession. A few more agonizingly quiet moments passed before she finally responded, her voice laced with a bitter contempt I hadn't heard in years. You're still exactly the same, aren't you? Choosing money over us, over the chance to fix what we had. It's not that simple, Rachel. It's $10 million. Think about what we could do with that kind of money. I started, my mind racing, trying to paint a picture of a future we could have, funded by my isolation. Can't believe you right now, she cut me off, her voice sharp, unforgiving. I thought maybe you'd changed, but you're still just a weak little man-child who refuses to take responsibility for anything. The click of the phone hanging up echoed in my silent apartment. I called back 17 times, my thumb numb hit redial again and again. She never answered. That night, I sat in my apartment, surrounded by my gleaming screens and endless amenities, and cried for the first time since she'd left me all those years ago, a raw, guttural sob that tore through my chest. But I didn't break the contract. 3 more years, I told myself. 3 more years and I'd have enough money to win her back, to prove that I could provide for her, for us, that I wasn't the weak man-child she saw. I would make her regret those words. In year 3, my mom called with news that made all of my veins freeze, turning my blood to ice. Honey, I need to tell you something. I went to the doctor last week for my annual checkup, and they found a lump in my breast. They're doing more tests, but they think it might. Her voice faded into an orchestra of muffled chaos, the distant sounds of her home, as her words sunk in. Uchwan, a lead weight dropped into my stomach. The world stopped. My mom was only 58. She was supposed to have decades left. She was supposed to meet my future kids, see me get married, grow old gracefully. She was my unwavering beacon, my constant. Do you think that nice gentleman would understand and let you come home for a while, sweetie? Her voice cracked, fragile as old glass. I paused for a moment. My breath became short, shallow gasps as I weighed the options. $10 million is so much to abandon, especially if the tests were to come back benign. But it's my mom. I could feel the tears welling up in my cheeks, a hot, uncontrollable flood moving toward my eyes. I must have been silent for a little too long as I decided, caught in the brutal calculus of love versus money, because she felt the need to interject. No, it's fine. Forget I asked at all. I'm sorry, honey. I shouldn't have put you through that kind of stress. Now, you've been working really hard. And who knows, with that kind of money, you'd be able to afford any treatment, even from God himself. She tried to laugh, a hollow, rattling sound that died in her throat. She made me promise not to break the contract. She, my own mother, asked me to stay in my prison. Against every instinct in my body, against every fiber of my being, screaming at me to run. To leave, to hold her, I stayed in my apartment. I watched the world and my mother through a screen. The cancer was aggressive, stage 3 by the time they caught it. I watched my mom fight through video calls, seeing her get thinner and weaker with each grueling round of chemo. Her vibrant eyes dulled, her hair thinned. I sent her money for the best treatments, the most expensive doctors, but it wasn't enough. Money, I learned, couldn't buy health, couldn't buy time, couldn't buy a mother. My friends stopped calling as much. Texts became sporadic, then faded to nothing, and Marcus got married in year 4. I watched the wedding through a live stream he set up for me, a tiny window into a life I no longer inhabited. It's not the same without you here, man, he said during our video call afterwards. His voice tinged with a sadness that mirrored my own. Sarah asks about you all the time. She thinks you've lost your mind. Maybe I had. I was talking to myself constantly now, having full conversations with imaginary people. My reflection in the bathroom mirror became a sparring partner, an audience. I'd argue with it, plead with it, lecture it. I'd narrate my entire day out loud, every mundane action, just to hear a human voice, even if it was my own. Okay, David, time to make some coffee. Ethiopian beans today because we're feeling fancy. Aren't we feeling fancy? Yes, we are definitely feeling fancy. The words became a shield against the creeping silence. I started leaving the TV on 24/7, a constant stream of background noise, background voices, white noise to drown out the ringing in my ears, the whispers in my head. I knew every episode of The Office by heart. I could recite entire scenes from Friends. These fictional people, their predictable lives, their comforting banter, became more real to me than my actual friends and family. They were my only company. My mom died on a Tuesday in February, year 5, day 364, one day before my contract was up. One single agonizing day. I got the call from my Aunt Linda at 6:47 a.m. Her voice, thick with tears, delivered the fatal blow. She fought so hard, David. Right up until the end, she kept talking about how proud she was of you, how excited she was to see you when you finished your project. I hung up the phone. Plastic receiver felt impossibly light in my hand. Then I screamed. A raw, primal sound ripped from the deepest part of my gut, echoing off the stained walls of my apartment until my throat was raw, burning. I put my fist through the bathroom mirror, the glass shattering with a satisfying crash, a reflection of my own brokenness. I threw my laptop across the room, watching it shatter against the wall, its screen a spiderweb of dead pixels, finally silent. But I didn't leave. I couldn't leave. Not with one day left, not when I was so close. Thought of all that sacrifice, all that suffering, for nothing. It was worse than the grief. It's the money, the promise of freedom, had become an invisible chain, stronger than any steel. Mr. Blackwood showed up exactly 24 hours later, at 6:47 a.m. He walked through my front door as if he already had the key, his expensive suit immaculate, his silver hair perfectly coiffed. I was sitting in the same spot I had been for the past 3 days, staring at a TV that had been broken for months, reciting lines from How I Met Your Mother, a mindless drone of forgotten humor. My face was caked with dried tears and snot. My hair was matted. I probably smelled like death. Congratulations, Mr. Walker. He handed me a check. $100 million. This did it. My fingernails were long and yellow, ragged from neglect. I took the check with shaking hands, the paper a surreal sliver of reality in my warped existence. My condolences on your recent loss, Mr. Walker. Of course he knew. He knew everything. He always did. I was about to tell him to go fuck himself, to shove his blood money where the sun didn't shine, when he smiled. That same confident, unsettling smile, and continued. I have one final proposition for you. 10 more years. Same arrangement. But this time, we'll make it worth your while. $100 million. $100 million. The new number slammed into me. Now that was some real fuck you money. Enough money to buy anything, go anywhere, do whatever I wanted. Enough money to make sure my mom's death wasn't for nothing. Enough money to win Rachel back, to show her what I'd accomplished, what I'd endured, to prove her wrong. Why? I asked, my voice a hoarse croak from disuse. Why me? Why any of this? Because you're very, very good at it, Mr. Walker. Most people break by year 2. You've made it 5 years and you're still functional. The word hung in the air, a chilling assessment. Functional, not human, not whole, just functional.
Nice.
I looked around my apartment, my self-prescribed tomb, my prison, my home. The stained walls, the torn carpet, the pervasive smell of stale air and despair. It was all I knew. 10 years, 10 years. I signed the 3rd contract. The pen felt like an extension of my own skeletal hand. My soul already frayed, shredded even further. The next decade was a blur of darkness. I stopped working. What was the point? With the upfront deposits and previous checks, I had enough money to last multiple lifetimes. I stopped showering regularly, stopped cleaning, stopped caring about anything. My existence narrowed to the confines of my apartment. I'd sleep for 16 hours a day, escaping into the oblivion of dreams, and spend the other 8 staring at screens, watching other people live their lives, their vibrant realities a cruel mockery of my own stagnation. Rachel got married. I saw the photos on Facebook, a fleeting glimpse of her radiant smile, before I finally deleted all my social media accounts, erased the last painful link to the outside world. She looked happy, radiant. Everything I could have given her if I hadn't been so fucking greedy, so utterly broken. Marcus and Sarah had 3 kids. I watched them grow up through Christmas cards that eventually stopped coming and sporadic texts that eventually stopped altogether. They stopped asking when I'd be done with my project. They stopped asking about me at all. I was a ghost. I started seeing things that weren't there. Shadows moving in my peripheral vision, just beyond the reach of my failing eyes. Voices calling my name from the hallway outside my door, whispering temptations. Sometimes I'd spend hours talking with my mom on the phone, pouring out my heart, before realizing how long she had been dead. The silence on the other end of the line, a crushing weight. The apartment started falling apart around me, physical manifestation of my own decay. I'd patched things just enough to keep them functional, but I stopped caring about making the place livable. The walls were stained, the carpet torn, everything smelled like despair and stale air, a suffocating shroud. By year 8, I was barely human anymore. Shell. I'd go days without speaking out loud, weeks without looking in a mirror. I forgot what my own voice sounded like. I forgot what it felt like to touch another person, to breathe fresh air, to feel sunlight on my skin. The thought of it, once a distant longing, became foreign, terrifying. When Mr. Blackwood finally returned, he walked through my front door as if he already had the key. He didn't knock. He just opened it. I was sitting in the same spot I had been for the past 3 days, staring at a TV that had been broken for months, reciting lines from How I Met Your Mother, my voice a raspy whisper. "Congratulations, Mr. Walker." He handed me a check. $100 million, you did it. I took the check with shaking hands. I probably smelled like death. "So," I said, my voice hoarse from disuse, barely a croak. "What's next? $1 billion for 20 years? There was a tone in my voice that hinted at sarcasm, a desperate, broken attempt at humor. But part of me, the pathetic, hollowed-out part, truly wanted an excuse to just lie here for a little bit longer. To not face the terrifying unknown. Mr. Blackwood laughed, a genuine sound of amusement, deep and resonant. "You've given us everything we needed. You're free to go." Free to go. The words hung in the stale air, hollow and meaningless. 16 years later, I was free to go. I walked outside for the first time in over a decade and immediately collapsed. The sunlight was a blinding assault, tearing at my eyes. The air, crisp and fresh, burned my lungs. The sounds of traffic and people, a dizzying cacophony, overwhelmed my senses. I sat on the sidewalk and vomited until there was nothing left, the bile burning my throat, before passing out into the oblivion of unconsciousness. I came to in a pool of my own waste, shivering, barely coherent, but aware enough to get my bearings. After all this time inside, I wasn't sure where to go. The streets looked unfamiliar after years of construction and local tax dollars. Buildings had risen and fallen, entire neighborhoods had transformed. But there was one place I was sure would still be open, a place that anchored me to a forgotten past. Jimmy wasn't there anymore. He'd retired years ago, a lifetime ago. The new bartender, a young man with a piercing in his eyebrow, didn't know my order, didn't know to leave me alone. Everything was different. The very air in the place felt alien. I'm sitting here now at the corner of the bar with a Budweiser in front of me, surrounded by people half my age, their laughter echoing in my ears, a foreign melody. Every time I try to join in, to connect, the words feel foreign in my mouth, clunky and ill-fitting. Desperate for any kind of connection, any shred of normalcy, I offer to buy drinks for strangers, thinking maybe my newfound wealth can at least purchase some temporary companionship, a fleeting warmth. But each time I try to pay for someone else, my card is declined. Within minutes, my phone buzzes with a text from an unknown number. "That money is for you, Mr. Walker. Not for sharing, not for connection. Just for me, my golden cage still intact, even outside its walls. The ultimate price of my freedom." I thought I won. I thought I'd outsmarted them, outlasted them. But the truth is, I was simply the most profitable subject. They didn't just buy my time. They bought my connection to the world, my humanity, my very soul. And the money, it's not a reward. It's the ultimate shackles, ensuring I remain exactly what they made me, alone. If David's story left you with a chilling sense of unease, if it made you question the true cost of chasing your desires, then smash that like button and tell us in the comments, what would be your breaking point in such a terrifying experiment? Subscribe for more stories that will remind you what's truly valuable.